the first preseason stat or takeaway or trend that you have to decide if it's nice, if you're nizing it, or if it's noise.
Mm.
Toronto Raptors the best team in the NBA. They went 4-0, and even if you exclude the Cans game, they had by far the best net rating. Is that I assume we can eliminate Nize in this one? Is that nice or noise?
It's noise to me. Is there something in between nice and noise? I guess I have to pick.
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with noise. I think the trends, the individual play that we've all talked about, you guys talked about with Savannah, all of that stuff is real. I think it's nice to have a lot of optimism and excitement about this team going to the season, about certain individual players, what the starting lineup's going to look like. But in terms of the preseason result, I'm not taking too much from it at all.
All right. I think that's fair. That was a little bit of a warm-up one. So let's get more specific into how they went about going 4-0 with, again, the best net rating by far, even if we exclude the game against an Australian side. So, Will, within that, probably the biggest thing that we are going to be evaluating this team's growth on over the course of the season is the half-court offense. Last year, they finished, basically, if we exclude the 4 teams that were aggressively tanking, they were the worst half-court offense among competitive teams in all of basketball. In the preseason here, and again, all of these team-level stats will exclude the Cans game because obviously that nudges things in a more favorable direction. So just in the 3 NBA games, they were 17th in half-court offense.
Yeah, I'm going to say that's noise. And the reason I'm going to say that noise is because you didn't see Jakob play in that Bulls game. And I don't think he was not even 100%. I would say fully interested in the Wizards game. And I think that, that's going to be a big part of it. I think that we have still not seen Dennis really get into full gear. I think Darko was talking about that at practice over the weekend was, he was like, well, Dennis will tell you he's 100%, but, I know that there's more ramp up for him to sort of get up to, right? And so until we see that really, and obviously Gary sort of being out for the Wizards game as well, like there's just too many mitigating factors. I mean,
so
in a regular season,
you think they could nudge higher than 17th in half-court offense?
I just don't know if
you're more optimistic.
I don't know if it's higher or lower. I don't even know if it's accurate in terms of they'll land in at 17th. But I think for me, it's just like you would never do this in the regular season where you would look at a 3-game sample and say this is what their half-court offense looks like for the whole year, right? Like we would recognize that that's a week of basketball. So I think in this case, like it's still TBD. The function in terms of how they want to play is different. They are definitely trying to move the ball, play it more through the post, a little bit more movement. But also we're seeing super deep rotations, all that kind of stuff. So for me, this is like way too noisy.
Okay, well, let's get in on one of those specifics, Alex, and I'll kick it to you with something Will said there. So within the specifics of this, the Raptors had the second highest assist rate in the preseason, but that came at the cost of the 4th highest turnover rate. Is that noise? Are you okay with it? It's nice, or do they need to Nize that they've gone too far onto the turnover side as they try to move the ball more here?
No, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the trade-off. I think they're clearly trying to play a very different style, and I think you guys I think everybody recognizes like why the turnover numbers were the way that they were, and it's like once you start playing this kind of more ball movement thing, I'm willing to live with it, so I'm cool with that one. Nice.
Well,
by the way, JR told me, I'm getting a lot of texts about Nize. JR told me that Nize actually means shut up. Is that true?
Again, did you grow up in Toronto? I don't understand.
I don't know. I'm just in a bubble.
If JR
I don't take streetcars.
If
either.
JR has a better branding for this, I was at a loss for
unbelievable.
And Liban is embarrassed. He says, "I'm embarrassed that I've never taught you how to use Nize it." So
yeah. Well,
wow.
we'll learn through this segment. If you land on one that
Blake was the one who introduced you to this word. A man from Cambridge.
Papa coach over here.
Yeah.
Brother.
Okay,
yeah.
Will. So as on the offensive side, one of the things the Raptors are obviously trying to do, as Alex said, is to move the ball a little bit more, and we hope that floats the half-court offense a little higher. Now, one of the more interesting trends is going to be we think that defensively they're going to play a little bit more conservative. It's certainly looked that way so far. Their ability to force opponent turnovers, or at least those results, have been down in the preseason. They haven't forced nearly as many turnovers. However, they were still able to, in the preseason, lap the league in fast break points. Do you believe in the trend that the Raptors can scale back the aggression and still be, if we'll say top 3 as they've been for 4 or 5 years now, transition offensive basketball?
Yeah, no, that's nice. Like 3 Michael Jordans, because like it's this is the function of the roster. Like they have incredible wings. They have players who are able to create fast break opportunities by making defensive sequences, right? So we're talking about blocks, we're talking about steals, we're talking about deflections. These things really do create a lot more opportunities. On top of the fact that, especially with Jakob more in the fold, but you're going to see the Raptors grab more defensive rebounds too. And all that's going to spark their fast break ability. Now, of course, I think that, over the course of the season, if the Raptors had one weakness in the fast break, it feels like their only option is to go all the way to the basket. You don't see a lot of fast break threes. You compare, for example, to a team like Indiana, for example, they also play a lot of fast break basketball, but a lot of their fast breaks are just like hit it up, Buddy Hield's leaked out for a three, and it's super quick and it's over like that. But even just watching the course of this game, rewatching that Washington game, so many possessions the Raptors got the ball past half court, 22 seconds, 21 seconds, latest 20 seconds. And that comes as a function of having sort of the roster you have right now. Having Dennis at point guard, I think also really helps with that because he's also a guy who can be, all out on that front. But even things that they do, like Scotty quick inbounding the ball after the Raptors give up a basket, like
Kyle's legacy.
No, but seriously though, like those are little things that they really add in. And then when you have the roster where you have multiple ball handlers, that's going to enable you to play a lot of fast break. But mostly it's the defensive playmaking that allows them to fuel that. So it's nice.
All right, Alex. So we'll mention that they don't have maybe the transition three in their bag quite as much. In the preseason, they shot 34.8% on threes. I'm including the Cans game here because the rate at which your threes go in is the rate at which your threes go in for the most part. So they shot 34.8% on threes. That's up from last year when they shot 33.5%, but still pretty significantly below the league average, which was 36.1% last year. So they closed half the ground to get to league average on threes. They were also 22nd in volume of threes. So we're lower in the bar here. That is a slight improvement, but generally where they are in terms of three-point shooting compared to the rest of the league, is this noise? Are they better or worse than that? Or do they need to Nize it and improve the three-point shooting? I'm giving you an opportunity to use it, man.
You know what? I appreciate you teeing it up because I think we're going to need to Nize it, boys. I think for all the positives, everything about the different style of play and all this stuff, that's my biggest concern with this team still, right? Like it's nice to see Grady Dick have like a 4 or 5. It's nice to talk about OG Anunoby, and Pascal Siakam maybe hitting a few more like above the break threes. But I look at this roster and I'm just like, I still worry about where the shooting's gonna come from. And like the one game we always remember last year was the ESPN game when they started 2 of 30 against Milwaukee.
They went hard in Rockets against the Warriors.
Exactly, but it's like where is that improvement year to year in shooting going to come from? That's like one of my big concerns about this team. If you want to be optimistic about it, is I'm not sure. I'm not sure if anything's drastically changed where we're going to see the Raptors, be a above average 3-point shooting team.
It'll help if Gary Trent Jr. and Grady Dick shoot 50% on threes, basically the whole preseason. We'll get into some individual trends here in a little bit, and maybe those will come up. Will, on the other side of the ball, again, excluding the Cans game, that skews the data even further positive. The Raptors were the number one half-court defense in the preseason. Number one is maybe high, but we certainly expect them to be better defensively this year. One specific strategic element that Darko Rajakovic has made mention of, and I wrote about this at sportsnet.ca last week, the Raptors over the last 4 years have basically set their own record and then threatened their own league record for the volume of corner threes they've allowed. In the preseason, they allowed the 6th fewest corner threes. What do you think of this potential trend? Is it noise? That's too high? Like they're not going to be able to climb it. It's too large a change, or are you going nice? You think this is potentially something they could replicate?
I really want to say it's just noise. I think part of it is, again, when you're looking at a 3-game sample and one of those games you're playing Chicago, who are not a prolific 3-point shooting team, Washington, who is very much TBD, but does not seem like a prolific 3-point shooting team, at least the roster that came through. So that could heavily influence sort of that. But, I mean, ultimately, the defensive approach does seem to involve a lot less helping just in general. And I think when you're staying more at home, you're able to sort of at least limit which type of threes you're giving up. You saw when the Raptors did give help, it was mostly from the top rather than from off the corners. And yeah, if that's similar to what Darko has said. I remember going back to his introductory press conference when they had it outside and had all those chairs filled out with media and players and
Free ice cream.
and a lot of MLSC employees.
Bad day to be on the Jays beat, missing out on free ice cream.
Hey man, we could have run it over to you at the Rogers Center. It was right across the street up on Bremner. But no, like one of the things that Darko talked about was obviously he wants to take away the paint and he wants to take away the corner threes, and those are his two main priorities. And I think that's just kind of in line with that. But until we see more games, it's hard to really know. I mean, I think even at this point, how much of their defensive playbook, their offensive playbook is even installed yet, right? So again, it's too much for
you're going Jacques Vaughn style here. Like, we haven't even put in sets yet. It's,
yeah, I mean,
several weeks into preseason.
Luckily, you see the Raptors running through sets at least. So, that's encouraging, I suppose.
That's a positive. All right, Alex, we're gonna go to some individual player trends now. I'll let you. I don't have them for everyone, but where do you want to start here?
Oh, I should pick a player?
Yeah.
Let's go with Mohamedou Gay. Yeah.
Okay.
No, you really have one?
No, I don't, but I could make one up on the fly.
Please don't.
We could do a whole we could do a whole 905 segment on this.
Let's go with I got 3 words for you, Blake. OG Anunoby.
Yeah. Do you want to do that part of it right now? Because I have thoughts on OG's consistent trend to try to get us to change his name.
Segment 4.
Segment 4. Okay. OG Anunoby had a 16.3% usage rate in the preseason. So usage rate is when you're on the floor, what percentage of offensive possessions do you finish with a shot, free throws, or a turnover? So league average would be 20, obviously, because there are 5 guys on the floor. 16.3 would be the lowest since the run it back season for OG Anunoby. Last year, he was at 19.5%. We've obviously discussed over the years OG's expanding role. Alex, do you think this is noise? Do you think this is nice because it allows OG to be more efficient in a smaller role, or do they need to Nize it and get OG more possessions?
I'm gonna Nize it just because I want to say Nize it, but also I do feel like you talk about the usage. Part of it is keeping the player happy too. Like OG Anunoby clearly has.
OG and Anunoby.
He's clearly talked about wanting a bigger role, and even within this offense, like I think I would expect his usage rate to be around what it was last year. Like that's my expectation. 16 and a half. Like that seems low to me.
Especially with how much this team needs his 3-point shooting.
Yeah,
right?
his team needs his 3-point shooting. And you're going into a contract year. Like I know you're not coaching to make players happy. You're coaching to win and stuff, but one could lead to the other. So I think part of it, his usage might be at like 70 if it was what it was like at the start of the Wizards game on Friday. But I think less about the usage total numbers. Just I'm interested to see how they actually use OG. You got to put him in positions because like a lot of those ISO possessions are not that exciting to me. So it's kind of like how you're using him too, I guess, is what I'm really looking at this year.
Yeah, I think with OG, finding the right balance between being aggressive and being opportunistic is going to be really important for him, because you saw moments in this preseason where pretty much everybody was taking good shots, but then OG would like randomly take a contested mid-range step back over 2 defenders, and it was like, what? It was just a bit of a record scratch. That's all. You know what I mean? Like, if you tell me Pascal, who's actually really good at those shots, is not taking them. If you're telling me Scotty, who has the ball a lot, is not taking them. Tell me Gary's not even taking them that much. Then why is OG sort of taking it, right? But at the same time, when you're thinking about Scotty's ascension, right, it does sort of take away a little bit off of other people's plates. And obviously Fred being gone that's a big absence in terms of sort of more opportunities being filled. But we have Dennis. Dennis fits at least 50% of that, right? So I think especially with Scotty getting more and more touches, it does take a little bit away from OG. But I also think for OG, it's just about recognizing how he can get involved. Like when you watch back on the tape, lots of opportunities where OG's coming off a curl, but he's not taking the right angle, or he's not taking the right shot when he's open, and he's waiting a little extra bit of a beat. Those are opportunities where the better he's able to read the game and more awareness that he comes at it with, there's going to be more opportunities. Because it's not like outside of those mid-range shots, it's not like anything that he's done is like hijacking the offense or anything bad, but it's just about reading the game. And that's such a big part of being a successful offensive player. But yeah, if he wants to be more than sort of a guy who is set up versus a guy who can create, that's the difference. And that's the key that he needs to hammer out.
And something I'll be keeping an eye on. I didn't intend to ask this one, but he had 0 possessions in the preseason where he finished a play via the cut. Last year, he averaged a little under 1 a game. I think that's an area, especially as we talk about these defensive changes or offensive changes rather, and we see how defenses respond, to a DHO over here or Scotty in the short roll. Well, if OG's stationed in the weak corner, he's a pretty adept cutter when he picks up on that. So I was a little surprised when I dug into the numbers and saw 0 for the preseason. Will, you mentioned Dennis Schroeder and him taking on some of that role that is left behind by Fred VanVleet. So how about this one? Dennis Schroeder led the team in assists on a per minute basis, however you want to chop it up, assist percentage. How do you feel about that one? And then where maybe there's room for a Nize here, or maybe even a Nize it because it's too much load. It was the highest assist rate we would have seen from the Raptors since 2019 Kalo.
Yeah, I'm going to have to say that this is, again, Nize. He had 11 assists in the Washington game, which I feel like really bumps up the total.
Sure does.
He's definitely been passing, and he's been doing a good job of it. But, yeah, I just don't think that it'll be the same sort of level of playmaking in the regular season, just in the sense that, like, again, we're talking about a 3-game sample. But at the same time, like, I like that he's been a willing passer. I like that he's been able to come up and set the floor for everybody else. And, I mean, I don't know. I think in terms of who's going to lead this team in assists, I would say it's either Pascal or Scotty. I kind of both expect him to be in that 6 range. And then I probably expect Dennis to probably be closer to maybe 5 to 6, but a little bit below that. But I mean, hey, listen, one of the nice things about preseason is outside of that Washington game where they have 36 assists, by the way, which is phenomenal, there's been an even distribution in terms of, like, lots of guys are getting on a score sheet with 3 assists versus one guy has like 10 assists and most of the other guys have 1 or 2.
And that's kind of what I hope to get at with this one is, like, yeah, okay, the percent, the degree to which Dennis is leading the team won't stay up, but how do you feel about the potential that, yeah, he does end up leading it, or is that, an indicator that maybe the ball's not moving around as much as you hope? Obviously, someone having a strong individual performance is rarely a negative, but Alex, how do you feel about that one, just in terms of how it signifies the offensive distribution?
Yeah, I think I'm with Will there in terms of I'm not sure if there's any player on this Raptors team that's going to be like, amongst like the league leaders and assists and things of that nature. But if you're getting that ball movement, like even Jakob too, I feel like Jakob not going to get a lot of the assist numbers, but like I guess like I don't know, like hockey assists or whatever you want to call it.
Screen assists, the Rudy Gobert triple double screen assists.
Yeah, screen assists, all hockey assists, all that stuff. It's I think
we gotta stop inventing more assists, man.
Yeah,
the assist is when you pass the ball to a guy who scores. That's it,
man.
Like,
this not what James Naismith wanted, man, when he saw that peach basket. But like,
yeah, but he didn't want people to dribble. So
yeah, he was getting people to tackle each other. And stuff.
You know what? Traveling. We should introduce traveling to the game. But I think it's the same. It's like if Pascal, Scotty, Dennis, even looking at Jakob. My thing is like that's why I think you guys talk about like Scotty maybe playing with some of the bench units and stuff. Like I think the bench unit needs an organizer, needs a playmaker, right? There's a lot of great athletes there, but like who's gonna take up those minutes? Because I mean, as nice as Gary makes those passes, when he makes that one nice pass to OG and he makes sure he does a little follow through on that. Like I do think that's the one thing I'm gonna look for in the second unit, especially.